Introduction to the Galactic Soldiers. In a dimly lit corner of the bustling intergalactic cantina, a peculiar assortment of beings gathered to share stories and drinks from across the universe. The air was thick with exotic aromas, laughter, and the occasional crash of glassware as patrons reveled in their nightly escapades. Among them were three distinct characters: Gloop Gloop, a gelatinous creature whose form shimmered like liquid glass; Zix Knack, a tall, spindly alien with multiple limbs and an exoskeleton that glimmered under the cantina's neon lights; and Kok the Decimator, a hulking Centaean warlord known for his ferocity in battle. Gloop Gloop quivered with a mix of excitement and trepidation as he leaned closer to Zix Knack. "I'm telling you, Zix, these humans are absolutely insane." His voice was a wet whisper, barely audible over the cacophony surrounding them. Zix rolled all 7 of her eyes simultaneously, unimpressed. "Oh, come off it, Gloop. You're always exaggerating. Remember when you thought Vogan poetry was charming? That was one time." Gloop protested, a faint blush spreading across his translucent body. "But this is different. I've seen it with my own optical receptors." Their conversation was interrupted by a booming laugh from across the bar. Kok had lumbered over, his massive frame casting a shadow over the smaller aliens. "You puddles of primordial ooze wouldn't know real danger if it bit you on your quantum fluctuations," he bellowed, slapping his knee, or what passed for a knee among his species, causing several glasses to rattle. Zix turned back to Gloop Gloop with renewed curiosity. "All right, blob for brain. Spill it. What's got you so worked up about these humans?" Gloop leaned in conspiratorially, lowering his voice to a dramatic whisper. "Well, you know how I was stationed on that joint military base on Epsilon Etani IV. The one where we were supposed to be fostering interspecies cooperation, or some such political nonsense." Zix nodded slowly, her exoskeleton creaking as she leaned closer. "Yes. Go on." "There I was," Gloop continued with fervor, "minding my own business when I overheard a group of human soldiers talking about their hobbies." "Hobbies?" Zix repeated skeptically. "What do they collect? Space stamps or something?" "I wish," Gloop exclaimed dramatically. "These maniacs were discussing something called extreme sports. And let me tell you, there's nothing sporting about it." Kok's interest peaked at this revelation. "Extreme sports. Sounds like my kind of fun." Gloop shot him a withering look, a notable feat for a being without solid features. "You would think that. But even you'd be terrified, Kok. These humans jump out of perfectly good spacecraft." Zix gasped in unison with Kok as they exchanged incredulous glances. "It's true," Gloop insisted passionately. "They call it skydiving. They climb to ridiculous altitudes, then leap out with nothing but a flimsy piece of fabric to slow their fall. And that's not even the worst of it," Zix interjected nervously. "Oh yes," Gloop continued enthusiastically. "They have this thing called free solo climbing where they scale sheer cliff faces without any safety equipment. No anti-grav harnesses or teleportation failsafes. Nothing. Just their bare hands and a death wish." Kok's eyes widened slightly. Respect crept into his gruff voice as he said, "Well, I'll be a Sargon's uncle. These humans might have some guts after all." "But wait. There's more." Gloop was clearly warming to his subject now, his gelatinous form rippling with excitement. "They strap boards to their feet and hurtle down mountains covered in frozen dihydrogen monoxide crystals. They call it skiing. And they seem to think it's fun." "Frozen what now?" Zix asked, confused. "I think he means snow," Kok grunted. "Yes, snow," Gloop confirmed eagerly. "And if that's not enough, they also do this thing called surfing where they balance on boards in the middle of giant crushing waves of water." "Water?" Zix echoed incredulously. Being from largely arid planets made the concept of vast oceans somewhat unsettling for her. "Do you have any idea how terrifying large bodies of water are?" Gloop continued passionately. Zix looked at Kok. Both were visibly shaken by this revelation, but intrigued nonetheless. But surely, Zix ventured cautiously, these must be only a small subset of humans, the really crazy ones. Gloop shook his entire body in what might have been an equivalent to a head shake for him. That's what I thought at first. But no. It seems like almost every human has some sort of death-defying hobby. Even those who don't actively participate watch these extreme sports for entertainment. Kok threw back his head in laughter at that notion. Now that's my kind of species. Maybe I should pay these humans a visit, see if they're up for a friendly war game or two. I wouldn't if I were you, Gloop warned ominously. You haven't heard about their combat sports yet. Combat sports. Zix repeated slowly as if trying to comprehend an especially difficult quantum equation. Oh yes, Gloop continued dramatically as he leaned closer again. His voice dropped to an almost conspiratorial whisper. They have this thing called mixed martial arts, where they basically beat each other to a pulp for fun and profit. And don't even get me started on hockey, he exclaimed. Hockey? Kok asked, intrigued despite himself. It's like a battle royale on ice, Gloop declared excitedly. They strap blades to their feet, arm themselves with curved sticks, and fight over a small disc made from vulcanized rubber. And that's considered a team sport. You're just making things up, Zix accused him incredulously. I wish I was. Gloop sighed dramatically but pressed on enthusiastically. And it gets worse. Much worse. How could it possibly get worse? Zix demanded skeptically. Gloop leaned in even closer, his voice barely audible over the ambient noise of the cantina now filled with anticipation. 2 words. Competitive eating. A momentary silence enveloped them as they processed this shocking revelation. Competitive eating. Kok repeated slowly as if tasting the words and finding them unpalatable. Yes. Gloop nodded solemnly. They compete to see who can consume the most food in the shortest amount of time. I saw a video once. A human consumed 76 hot dogs in just 10 minutes. Do you have any idea how horrifying that is? That's barbaric, Zix exclaimed, her exoskeleton paling slightly at the thought. Barbaric? That's impressive. Kok boomed as he slapped Gloop on what passed for his back, causing the gelatinous alien to wobble dangerously. You would think that, Zix muttered under her breath while rolling her eyes again. But here's the kicker. Gloop continued, regaining his composure amidst their astonishment. All of this, it's just what they do for fun. You should see what they're like when they're actually trying to be dangerous. What do you mean? Zix asked hesitantly as trepidation crept into her voice once more. Well, remember how I mentioned I was stationed at that joint military base? Gloop began again eagerly. Yes, yes. Get on with it. Kok growled impatiently. Well, one day, Gloop said dramatically while leaning even closer again, I accidentally wandered into their weapons testing range. And let me tell you, he continued with wide-eyed intensity, what I saw made all their extreme hobbies look like a relaxing day at a zero-gravity spa. Now intrigued beyond measure, both Zix and Kok leaned forward, eagerly awaiting further revelations about these strange earthlings who seemed both terrifying and fascinating all at once. The discovery of Earth's extreme hobbies. As Gloop Gloop settled back into his chair, the excitement in his gelatinous form began to settle into a more serious tone. Kok the Decimator leaned in, his hulking figure casting a shadow over the smaller aliens. So, you're telling us that these humans not only engage in reckless activities for fun, but also have a military arsenal that could rival ours? He asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and intrigue. Yes, Gloop confirmed, his body rippling with enthusiasm. But it's not just their military capabilities that are astonishing. It's their entire approach to life. They seem to thrive on pushing boundaries and embracing danger. Zix Knack, her exoskeleton glinting under the cantina lights, interjected. Tell us more about these extreme sports. What else do they do? Gloop took a deep breath, preparing to delve deeper into the bizarre world of human hobbies. Well, aside from skydiving and free solo climbing, they have something called parkour. It's like a dance of death where they leap across rooftops, vault over obstacles, and run along walls, all while trying to avoid falling to their doom. Kok's eyes widened with a mixture of admiration and concern. That sounds impressive. But why would anyone willingly put themselves in such peril? Exactly, Gloop exclaimed. That's what makes them so fascinating. It's as if they have an innate desire to confront danger head-on. And then there's their obsession with motorsports, racing high-speed vehicles around tracks at breakneck speeds. They call it Formula One. Zix shook her head in disbelief. Why would they want to risk their lives for a trophy? Gloop shrugged, his gelatinous form wobbling slightly. It's all about the thrill for them. The adrenaline rush. Humans seem to find joy in the very act of defying gravity and challenging fate. Kok nodded slowly, processing this information. So, they're not just reckless. They're driven by something deeper, a need to test their limits. Precisely, Gloop replied enthusiastically. And it doesn't stop there. They even have something called base jumping, where they leap off cliffs or buildings with parachutes strapped to their backs. Zix shuddered at the thought. That sounds utterly insane. How can they enjoy such terrifying activities? Gloop leaned closer again, his voice dropping to a whisper. It's all part of their culture. They celebrate bravery and resilience. In fact, many humans idolize those who take risks and push boundaries, like extreme athletes. Kok chuckled heartily at this revelation. I can respect that. Perhaps I should take notes on how to be more human. But wait, Gloop continued eagerly. There's more. They also have this peculiar fascination with something called urban exploration. It involves sneaking into abandoned buildings or forgotten places just for the thrill of discovery. Zix raised an eyebrow skeptically. And what do they find there? Ghosts? Sometimes. Gloop laughed lightly. But mostly they find remnants of human history, old machinery, graffiti art, and stories waiting to be uncovered. Kok leaned back thoughtfully, clearly impressed by the humans' adventurous spirit. They sound like a species that thrives on chaos and unpredictability. Exactly. Gloop agreed passionately. And you know what else? They even have a sport called extreme ironing, where they take an ironing board to remote locations, like mountaintops or underwater, and iron clothes while balancing precariously. Zix blinked in disbelief. Ironing? That's absurd. Absurdly entertaining. Gloop corrected her with glee. It's all about finding joy in the mundane while embracing adventure. As Kok pondered this new information, he couldn't help but admire the human's ability to blend creativity with danger. So far, it sounds like these humans are both reckless and brilliant. He mused aloud. But don't forget, Gloop interjected seriously. This is just their hobbies we're talking about. When it comes to warfare, well, that's an entirely different story. Kok straightened up at this reminder. His interest piqued once more. Right. You mentioned their military arsenal earlier. What makes it so formidable? Gloop took another deep breath before continuing his tale. Imagine tanks that can withstand direct hits from plasma cannons while moving faster than any creature you've ever encountered. These machines are like mobile fortresses made of metal so thick it could withstand anything short of a direct hit from a starship. Kok's eyes widened further as he absorbed this information. And what about their flying machines? Oh, those are even more impressive. Gloop exclaimed excitedly. They have jets that can break the sound barrier, machines capable of carrying enough firepower to level entire cities. Zix gasped softly at this revelation, her curiosity turning into genuine concern. And what about their naval capabilities? She asked hesitantly. Gloop nodded gravely as he prepared to describe humanity's naval prowess. Humans looked at their vast oceans and thought, let's build massive floating fortresses. Their largest vessels are called aircraft carriers, floating cities that can launch swarms of those supersonic jets I mentioned earlier. Kok leaned forward eagerly now. The prospect of facing such formidable foes was both thrilling and terrifying for him. Imagine, Gloop continued dramatically, a single aircraft carrier housing hundreds of aircraft, ready for battle at any moment. It's like facing an entire armada on your own. Zix shook her head in disbelief again as she processed this information. But how do they manage such technology? It seems beyond comprehension. They work together, Gloop explained simply but passionately. Humans are incredibly resourceful. They collaborate across borders and cultures to innovate and improve their technology constantly. Kok scratched his chin thoughtfully while considering this new perspective on humanity's strength. And here's the kicker, Gloop added with a conspiratorial grin. All those extreme sports, they apply that same reckless spirit when training their soldiers. These elite units called special forces go through trials that would make most species weep for mercy. What kind of trials? Zix asked with morbid fascination. They jump out of aircraft into hostile territory. Gloop explained eagerly, his voice rising with excitement once more. They swim through freezing waters for hours and learn survival skills in some of the harshest environments imaginable, all for the chance to undertake dangerous missions. Kok slammed his fist on the bar in admiration, causing several nearby patrons to jump in alarm once again. Now that is what I call true warriors. Gloop nodded vigorously as he continued sharing stories about human resilience and bravery. But here's where it gets really interesting, he said dramatically as he leaned closer once more. What could possibly be more interesting than all this? Zix asked incredulously. Well, Gloop began slowly, savoring the moment before revealing his next piece of information. I overheard some humans discussing something called antimatter weapons. Kok raised an eyebrow curiously, while Zix leaned in closer as if trying to catch every word. They theorize about harnessing the power of matter-antimatter annihilation for military purposes. Gloop concluded dramatically. A stunned silence enveloped them as the implications sank in. But that's insane. Zix finally managed to say after several moments had passed. Indeed, Kok agreed solemnly as he processed this new revelation about humanity's potential capabilities. As they sat there absorbing all this newfound knowledge about Earthlings, both terrifying and awe-inspiring, the cantina buzzed around them with laughter and chatter from various alien patrons enjoying their own stories and adventures. Little did they know just how much these strange humans would impact their lives and perhaps even change the course of history itself. Combat sports and competitive eating. In the dimly lit corner of the intergalactic cantina, Gloop Gloop was still buzzing with excitement from his revelations about Earth's extreme hobbies. Kok the Decimator leaned in closer, his massive frame casting a shadow over the smaller aliens. You mentioned combat sports earlier, he prompted, eager to hear more about these strange humans and their peculiar pastimes. Gloop Gloop nodded vigorously, his gelatinous form rippling with enthusiasm. Yes, humans have a wide variety of combat sports, and they take them very seriously. One of the most popular is called mixed martial arts, or MMA for short. Kok's eyes gleamed with interest. What's so special about that? The art of combat. Gloop leaned in, lowering his voice as if sharing a closely guarded secret. MMA is like a grand melee where fighters use various techniques from different martial arts. Boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, you name it. They train for years to perfect their skills, and then face off in a cage or ring. Zix Knack raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet skeptical. And they do this for fun. It sounds brutal. It is, Gloop exclaimed, but that's what makes it exciting for them. The thrill of competition drives them. They cheer for their favorites and celebrate their victories like ancient warriors returning from battle. Kok chuckled heartily. I can respect that. It sounds like they have a warrior spirit. Hockey, a battle on ice. Don't forget about hockey. Gloop continued, his excitement palpable. It's another intense sport where two teams compete on ice, armed with sticks and blades trapped to their feet. Zix looked puzzled. Ice? Why would anyone want to play on something so slippery? Because it's exhilarating. Gloop replied animatedly. Players skate at high speeds, trying to score goals while dodging opponents who are just as determined to knock them down. It's like a battle royale on ice. Kok laughed loudly, slapping the bar with a massive hand. Now that sounds like my kind of fun. But what happens when someone gets hurt? Gloop shrugged nonchalantly. Injuries are common, but that's part of the game. The players get back up and keep fighting, literally. Sometimes they even drop their sticks and engage in fistfights right there on the ice. Zix shook her head incredulously. That's madness. How do they not get banned for such behavior? Because it's entertaining. Gloop explained with glee. Fans love the excitement and drama. It adds to the spectacle. Competitive eating. A bizarre pastime. But wait, Zix interjected, her mandibles clicking with curiosity. You mentioned something about competitive eating earlier. What's that all about? Gloop grinned widely, clearly delighted to share this peculiar aspect of human culture. Ah yes, competitive eating is where humans compete to see who can consume the most food in the shortest amount of time. It sounds absurd, but it's a huge event. Kok raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet skeptical. How does one even prepare for such a thing? They train. Gloop replied enthusiastically. Some eat massive quantities of food to stretch their stomachs, while others practice techniques to swallow quickly without chewing. Zix looked horrified at the thought. And people watch this? Absolutely. Gloop confirmed, his excitement infectious. They gather in large crowds to cheer on their favorites as they devour hot dogs, pies, or whatever food is on the menu. I once saw a human eat 76 hot dogs in just 10 minutes. Can you imagine? Kok let out a hearty laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. That's both impressive and disgusting. The appeal of madness. It is. Gloop agreed wholeheartedly. But that's what makes it so captivating for humans, pushing boundaries and embracing chaos. They love celebrating those who dare to do the impossible. Zix couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and horror at these strange humans who seem to thrive on danger and excess. But here's where it gets really interesting. Gloop continued eagerly, leaning closer once more as if sharing a secret. All these extreme hobbies, they're just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to human resilience. What do you mean? Zix asked curiously. A warrior's spirit. Well, Gloop began slowly, savoring each word as he spoke. These extreme sports reflect their warrior spirit, their desire to test themselves against all odds. And when it comes to actual combat, well, that's where things get even crazier. Kok leaned forward eagerly, as if he were about to hear the most thrilling tale ever told. Remember how I mentioned I wandered into their weapons testing range? Gloop asked dramatically. Yes, Kok exclaimed impatiently. Well, Gloop continued with a dramatic pause, what I saw there made all those extreme hobbies look like child's play. The arsenal unveiled. Gloop took a deep breath before diving into his story again. They have these massive machines called tanks, mobile fortresses made from metal so thick they could withstand direct hits from plasma cannons. And they can move faster than you'd think. Kok's eyes widened with interest as he imagined such powerful machines rolling across battlefields. And then there are their flying machines, Gloop added excitedly. They call them jets. These marvels can break the sound barrier while carrying enough firepower to level entire cities. Zix gasped softly at this revelation, her curiosity turning into genuine concern. But wait, there's more. Gloop exclaimed dramatically. They also have naval vessels, floating fortresses that can launch swarms of those supersonic jets I mentioned earlier. Kok looked stunned at this point. He had never imagined humans could possess such formidable technology. Imagine an aircraft carrier, a floating city equipped with everything needed for war. Gloop continued passionately. Zix shook her head in disbelief again as she processed this information. The elite soldiers. But here's where it gets truly fascinating, Gloop said eagerly as he prepared to share more about humanity's military capabilities. They have elite soldiers known as special forces, he explained with wide-eyed intensity. These warriors voluntarily undergo grueling training that would make most species weep for mercy. They jump out of aircraft into hostile territory and swim through freezing waters, all just for the chance to go on dangerous missions. Kok slammed his fist on the bar in admiration once more. He felt an unexpected respect for these Earthlings who seemed so fearless. And all this, Gloop continued dramatically, leaning closer again. It reflects their insatiable thirst for adventure and challenge. They're always pushing boundaries, always looking for the next thrill or technological breakthrough. Zix looked both fascinated and terrified by this revelation about humanity's relentless spirit. What could possibly be next? She asked hesitantly. The future awaits. Well, Gloop began slowly again, savoring every word as if revealing a great secret. I overheard some scientists talking about something called antimatter weapons. A moment of stunned silence enveloped them as they processed this new information. The energy released from even a small amount could be catastrophic. Zix exclaimed incredulously. Yes, Gloop confirmed gravely. Imagine harnessing that power for warfare. As they sat there absorbing all this newfound knowledge about Earthlings, both terrifying and awe-inspiring, the cantina buzzed around them with laughter and chatter from various alien patrons enjoying their own stories and adventures. Little did they know just how much these strange humans would impact their lives, and perhaps even change the course of history itself. Military hardware and training. In the vibrant atmosphere of the intergalactic cantina, Gloop Gloop's tales of human extremities had captivated his companions. Kok the Decimator leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the smaller aliens. So these humans not only engage in ridiculous hobbies, but also possess a military arsenal that could rival ours? He asked, his voice a blend of disbelief and intrigue. Absolutely, Gloop replied, his gelatinous form shimmering with excitement. But it's not just their hobbies that are astonishing. It's their entire approach to warfare. They have developed military hardware that is both advanced and terrifying. Zix Knack, her exoskeleton glinting under the cantina lights, interjected. Tell us more about this military hardware. What makes it so formidable? The power of tanks. Gloop took a deep breath, preparing to dive into the world of human military technology. Imagine tanks that are practically mobile fortresses. These machines are built from metal so thick that they can withstand direct hits from plasma cannons while moving at impressive speeds. Kok's eyes widened in amazement. And what about their weapons? What do they carry? They have main guns capable of punching holes through solid rock. Gloop exclaimed, his excitement palpable. These tanks are not just for show. They're engineered for battle, equipped with advanced targeting systems and armor that can deflect incoming fire. Zix shook her head in disbelief. That sounds like an unstoppable force. But how do they manage to operate such complex machines? They train rigorously, Gloop explained. Human soldiers undergo extensive training to learn how to operate these tanks effectively. They practice maneuvers in simulated environments before ever stepping onto a battlefield. The might of jets. But wait until you hear about their flying machines. Gloop continued eagerly. They have jets that can break the sound barrier, machines capable of carrying enough firepower to level entire cities. Kok leaned closer, captivated by the sheer power of these human creations. What kind of firepower are we talking about? Imagine missiles that can strike targets from hundreds of miles away. Gloop replied dramatically. These jets are equipped with advanced technology that allows them to evade detection and strike with pinpoint accuracy. Zix's mandibles clicked in astonishment. How do they manage such technological advancements? It seems beyond comprehension. They work together as a species, Gloop explained passionately. Humans collaborate across borders and cultures to innovate and improve their technology constantly. Their military might is a product of teamwork and ingenuity. Naval power, aircraft carriers, and let's not forget their naval capabilities. Gloop added, his voice filled with awe. Humans have built massive floating fortresses called aircraft carriers, floating cities that can launch swarms of those supersonic jets I mentioned earlier. Kok's eyes widened further as he imagined such powerful vessels gliding across the ocean waves. What do these aircraft carriers look like? Picture an enormous ship brimming with aircraft ready for battle at any moment. Gloop continued excitedly. They can house hundreds of personnel and carry everything needed for warfare: fuel, ammunition, and even medical facilities. Zix was visibly impressed, but also concerned. And how do humans manage to maintain such vast fleets? They have dedicated crews who specialize in various roles. Gloop explained. From pilots to engineers, everyone plays a part in keeping these vessels operational. The elite soldiers, special forces. But here's where it gets really interesting, Gloop said as he leaned closer again, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Humans have elite soldiers known as special forces. These warriors voluntarily undergo grueling training that would make most species weep for mercy. What kind of training? Kok asked, intrigued. They jump out of aircraft into hostile territory. Gloop explained eagerly. They swim through freezing waters for hours and learn survival skills in some of the harshest environments imaginable, all just for the chance to undertake dangerous missions. Zix looked both fascinated and horrified by this revelation about humanity's relentless spirit. Now that is what I call true warriors. Kok boomed, slamming his fist on the bar in admiration. Gloop nodded vigorously as he continued sharing stories about human resilience and bravery. The unyielding spirit. But here's the kicker, Gloop continued, his voice dropping to a whisper once more. All this extreme hardware, it reflects their insatiable thirst for adventure and challenge. They're always pushing boundaries, always looking for the next thrill or technological breakthrough. What could possibly be next? Zix asked hesitantly. Well, Gloop began slowly again, savoring every word as if revealing a great secret. I overheard some scientists discussing something called antimatter weapons. A moment of stunned silence enveloped them as they processed this new information. Antimatter weapons. Kok repeated slowly as if trying to grasp the enormity of what he had just heard. Yes, Gloop confirmed gravely. They theorize about harnessing the power of matter-antimatter annihilation for military purposes. Just imagine the energy released from even a small amount. It could be catastrophic. Zix gasped softly at this revelation, her curiosity turning into genuine concern. But that's insane. The energy released could destroy entire planets. Exactly. Gloop agreed solemnly. And yet humans are constantly exploring these possibilities. They're driven by curiosity and ambition, always seeking ways to improve their capabilities. The implications, as they sat there absorbing all this newfound knowledge about Earthlings, both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The cantina buzzed around them with laughter and chatter from various alien patrons enjoying their own stories and adventures. Little did they know just how much these strange humans would impact their lives, and perhaps even change the course of history itself. The realization hung heavy in the air. Humanity was not just a species defined by its hobbies. It was a civilization on the brink of unleashing unimaginable power upon the universe. As Gloop finished recounting tales of human military prowess, Kok leaned back thoughtfully, contemplating what this meant for intergalactic relations. Perhaps we should keep an eye on these Earthlings, he mused aloud. Gloop nodded sagely while Zix remained silent, lost in thought about the unpredictable nature of humanity. A species capable of both extraordinary creativity and horrifying destruction. And so, as laughter echoed through the cantina and drinks flowed freely among patrons from every corner of the galaxy, three unlikely friends pondered what lay ahead in their encounters with Earthlings. A journey filled with danger, discovery, and perhaps even unexpected alliances, special forces, and their training. As the atmosphere in the intergalactic cantina buzzed with excitement, Gloop Gloop continued to captivate his audience with tales of humanity's audacious spirit. Kok the Decimator leaned back, his massive frame relaxing, as he absorbed the stories of Earth's extreme hobbies and military might. Zix Knack, however, was still processing the implications of Gloop's revelations about antimatter weapons. The elite warriors. Now let me tell you about the elite soldiers of Earth, the special forces, Gloop said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. These warriors are not just your average soldiers. They voluntarily put themselves through grueling training that would make most beings cry for their egg donors. Kok's interest piqued again. What kind of training do they undergo? He asked, leaning forward. Imagine this, Gloop began, excitement bubbling in his gelatinous form. They jump out of aircraft into hostile territories. They swim through freezing waters for hours on end and learn survival skills in some of the harshest environments imaginable, all just for the chance to undertake the most dangerous missions. Zix's eyes widened in disbelief. That sounds like madness. Why would anyone willingly put themselves through such torture? It's all about the challenge, Gloop replied eagerly. These soldiers thrive on pushing their limits. They want to prove themselves, to show they can survive against all odds. The training regimen. Kok nodded slowly, trying to comprehend this intense training regimen. So, what exactly do they do during their training? They practice everything from hand-to-hand combat to advanced weaponry, Gloop explained. They learn how to navigate through enemy territory undetected and how to use various tools and gadgets to accomplish their missions. Gadgets? Zix asked, intrigued. Yes, they have devices that can help them communicate silently, tools for climbing walls, and even drones for reconnaissance. Gloop elaborated. These soldiers are equipped with cutting-edge technology that enhances their capabilities. Kok grinned widely at this revelation. Now that sounds impressive. But what happens if they fail? Gloop's expression turned serious. Failure can mean death in their line of work. That's why they train so hard. They understand the stakes involved. The warrior spirit. Zix shook her head in disbelief again. It's incredible how much these humans are willing to risk. But what motivates them? It's a combination of factors, Gloop explained thoughtfully. Some are driven by a sense of duty to protect their homeland. Others seek adventure or glory. But at the core, it's about resilience, the ability to stand up after being knocked down. Kok slammed his fist on the bar in admiration once more. I can respect that. It takes a unique kind of bravery to face such dangers willingly. But here's where it gets really interesting, Gloop continued eagerly, leaning in closer as if sharing a secret. These elite soldiers also engage in extreme sports as part of their training. The connection between sports and warfare. What do you mean? Zix asked curiously. Well, Gloop began slowly, savoring each word. The skills they develop through extreme sports, like skydiving or rock climbing, translate directly into their military training. The thrill of jumping from an aircraft helps them overcome fear and build confidence. Kok nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. It's like preparing them for real-life situations where they need to think quickly and adapt. Exactly, Gloop exclaimed. And because they're constantly pushing their limits during training, they become better equipped to handle whatever challenges come their way. The human resilience. As they sat there absorbing all this newfound knowledge about Earthlings, both terrifying and awe-inspiring, the cantina buzzed around them with laughter and chatter from various alien patrons, enjoying their own stories and adventures. Do you think we could ever learn from these humans? Zix pondered aloud. I believe we can, Kok replied thoughtfully. Their resilience is something we could all aspire to emulate. Gloop nodded enthusiastically. Humans have an incredible ability to adapt and innovate. That spirit is what sets them apart from other species. A shift in perspective. Just then, a group of humans entered the cantina, laughing and joking among themselves. Gloop watched them closely, fascinated by their energy and camaraderie. "Look at them," he said excitedly. "They embody everything we've been discussing. Their joy in life, their willingness to take risks." Kok observed the humans with newfound respect. "Perhaps we've underestimated them all along." Zix remained thoughtful as she watched the humans interact with one another. There's something admirable about their spirit, a determination to live life fully despite the dangers. The future awaits. As the night wore on and laughter echoed through the cantina, Gloop felt a sense of camaraderie with his companions, a shared understanding that perhaps humanity was not so different after all. "We should consider forming alliances with these Earthlings," Kok suggested suddenly. "An alliance?" Zix echoed skeptically. "Yes," Kok insisted passionately. "Imagine what we could accomplish together. Their ingenuity combined with our strength could lead to unprecedented advancements." Gloop beamed at this idea while Zix contemplated it carefully. "But we must approach them cautiously," she warned. "We cannot forget that they possess incredible power and potential threats." "True," Kok agreed solemnly. As they continued discussing humanity's strengths and weaknesses, it became clear that a new chapter was unfolding, a chapter filled with possibilities for cooperation or conflict. Little did they know just how much these strange humans would impact their lives, and perhaps even change the course of history itself.